Okay, so you want to own a gym, not just any gym, but the kind people dream about. The kind with rows of gleaming treadmills, racks of heavy dumbbells, spotless locker rooms, and members streaming through the doors from sunrise until late at night. Every time someone scans their membership card, another monthly payment lands in your bank account. It sounds like the perfect business. Instead of convincing customers to buy something over and over again, they simply subscribe once and keep paying every month. Whether they come in 5 days a week or never show up at all, the money keeps coming. It's the kind of recurring revenue every entrepreneur wishes they had. And honestly, it seems like a business that can never go out of style. People will always want to lose weight, build muscle, improve their health, or simply feel better about themselves. Every year, millions of people make New Year's resolutions to get fit. Social media is filled with workout videos, transformation stories, and fitness influencers. The global fitness industry is worth well over $100 billion, and demand continues to grow as more people prioritize their health. Looking at those numbers, opening a gym almost feels like an obvious investment. So you begin imagining your own facility. Maybe it's a premium fitness club with luxurious locker rooms, a swimming pool, and a juice bar. Maybe it's a 24-hour budget gym where members can work out whenever they want. Or perhaps it's a specialized strength training gym built for serious athletes. Whatever version you picture, the dream always looks the same. The parking lot is full. The treadmills are occupied. Personal trainers are coaching clients. Group fitness classes are packed. Protein shakes are flying off the shelves. Every month, membership payments arrive like clockwork. It almost looks like a machine that prints money. But before you sign a lease, buy your first treadmill, or hire your first trainer, there's one question that separates successful gym owners from everyone else. Are you actually getting into the fitness business, or are you getting into the real estate business? At first, that question sounds strange. After all, people don't join a gym because of the building. They join because they want results. But the longer you look at the economics, the more you realize that the building itself may be the single most important part of the entire business. Let's imagine you've saved $600,000 to launch your dream gym. You find the perfect location. It's surrounded by apartment buildings, office workers, restaurants, and shopping centers. Thousands of potential customers live within a 10-minute drive. It couldn't be more perfect. Now the spending begins. You start ordering equipment. Commercial treadmills alone can cost anywhere from $8,000 to $15,000 each. Strength machines often cost several $1,000s a piece. A full set of commercial dumbbells can cost tens of thousands of dollars. Then come the squat racks, cable machines, benches, rowing machines, stationary bikes, ellipticals, and weight plates. Before long, you've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars, and your gym still isn't ready to open. But surprisingly, the equipment isn't even your biggest expense. You still have to renovate the building. You need heavy-duty flooring that can withstand thousands of pounds crashing onto it every day. You need showers, locker rooms, bathrooms, reception areas, security systems, access control gates, sound systems, mirrors covering entire walls, and enough air conditioning to cool dozens of people exercising at the same time. Commercial gyms consume enormous amounts of electricity because every treadmill, fan, television, and lighting fixture runs for hours every single day. Suddenly, costs you never thought about begin piling up one after another. Then there are the expenses that never stop: rent, insurance, property taxes, equipment maintenance, cleaning services, internet, software subscriptions, music licensing, payroll, marketing. Every single month, these bills continue arriving whether your gym is full or completely empty. Eventually, opening day arrives. The ribbon is cut, the doors open, and your first members walk inside. It feels incredible. Some people buy monthly memberships. Others commit to annual plans. Friends bring their friends. Social media posts begin appearing. Your dream has officially become a reality. For the first few days, everything seems exactly as you imagined. Then you begin noticing something interesting. At 6 o'clock in the morning, the gym is packed with people trying to work out before heading to the office. By 11 in the morning, the building becomes almost empty. In the afternoon, only a handful of members are exercising. Then suddenly, between 5 and 8 in the evening, every treadmill is occupied, every bench is taken, and people are waiting to use equipment. By 10 o'clock at night, the gym is nearly empty again. The more you observe your business, the more you realize something important. Your equipment doesn't make money, your members do, and they don't use your gym evenly throughout the day. That creates one of the biggest economic challenges in the entire fitness industry. You're paying rent 24 hours a day. You're paying electricity 24 hours a day. You're paying insurance 24 hours a day. But the majority of your revenue-generating activity happens during just a few busy hours every morning and evening. This completely changes the way you think about the business. Owning a gym isn't just about helping people become healthier. It's about making one building serve as many people as possible without making it feel overcrowded. That's why two gyms with exactly the same number of members can have completely different profits. One gym might use its space efficiently, while another wastes thousands of square feet. One carefully manages traffic during peak hours, while another constantly has members waiting for machines. One understands capacity, the other simply buys more equipment and hopes for the best. In reality, the most valuable asset inside your gym isn't the treadmill or the squat rack. It's every square foot of space. Think about an airline for a moment. Airlines don't make money simply because they own airplanes. They make money because they fill seats. Every empty seat on a flight represents revenue that disappears forever the moment the plane takes off. Gyms work in a surprisingly similar way. Every treadmill sitting unused during your busiest hours is an expensive investment generating nothing. Every empty fitness class represents lost revenue. Every piece of floor space that isn't being used efficiently still costs money because the rent never stops. And that's why successful gym owners spend far more time studying numbers than lifting weights. They monitor how many members visit each day, what time they arrive, how long they stay, which machines are most popular, and which areas of the gym remain underused. These small details determine whether the business thrives or struggles. But perhaps the biggest surprise of all is this: if every single member actually came to the gym every single day, most gyms would collapse under the pressure. That sounds completely backwards. Wouldn't more people using your gym be a good thing? As it turns out, not always. And that's exactly where the economics of owning a gym become far more fascinating than most people ever imagine. But here's the part that surprises almost everyone. Most gyms don't make the majority of their money from people lifting weights. They make their money from people buying access. That's a very important distinction. You're not selling a workout. You're selling the opportunity to work out whenever someone chooses. Once you understand that, the entire business starts to look different. A gym isn't simply a collection of exercise machines. It's a subscription business. And like every successful subscription business, its profitability depends on one thing above everything else: keeping customers paying for as long as possible. Let's say your gym charges $50 a month. If you convince 1,000 members to join, that sounds like an easy $50,000 every month. Over a year, that's $600,000 in recurring revenue before you've sold a single protein shake or personal training session. At first glance, it seems like reaching 1,000 members is the finish line. But in reality, it's only the beginning. Every month, members cancel. Some move to another city, some lose motivation. Others decide to build a home gym or simply stop exercising altogether. This is known as churn, and it's one of the most important numbers every gym owner tracks. Imagine that every month, 50 members cancel their memberships. That means you must find 50 brand new customers every single month just to keep your revenue from shrinking. You're not growing the business. You're simply replacing the people who left. This is why marketing never stops. Even the busiest gyms are constantly advertising. Social media campaigns, referral bonuses, free trial memberships, local sponsorships, corporate partnerships, student discounts, New Year promotions, summer body challenges. Every month, the business must convince new people to walk through the door because every month someone else walks out. Then there's another revenue stream that's often far more profitable than memberships themselves: personal training. Imagine a member paying $50 each month for unlimited gym access. Now imagine another member hiring a personal trainer 3 times a week at $80 per session. That single customer can generate over $900 every month instead of just $50. Suddenly you realize why so many gyms invest heavily in building teams of personal trainers. The membership gets people through the door. Personal training is often where the real profits begin. The same principle applies to group fitness classes. Yoga, spinning, Pilates, boxing, CrossFit-style sessions, boot camps, and high-intensity interval training all create opportunities to earn more revenue from existing members. It's much easier to sell additional services to someone who's already inside your gym than it is to convince a complete stranger to become a customer. Economists call this increasing customer lifetime value. Instead of constantly chasing new members, successful businesses find ways to earn more from the customers they already have. But that's where another challenge appears. Every additional service requires additional costs. Personal trainers expect commissions or salaries. Group classes require instructors. Smoothie bars need inventory. Childcare requires licensed staff. Massage and recovery services require specialized equipment and trained professionals. Every new source of income also introduces another layer of complexity. What looks like easy money from the outside often comes with its own hidden expenses. Then there's equipment maintenance, one of the least glamorous but most important parts of owning a gym. Every treadmill contains motors, belts, electronics, and moving parts that wear out over time. Cable machines need regular inspections. Weight benches require repairs. Upholstery tears. Air conditioning systems work almost nonstop. Locker room plumbing constantly needs attention. Unlike a retail store where products simply sit on shelves, almost everything inside a gym is used repeatedly every single day. The harder your equipment works, the faster it wears out. Ironically, a busy gym can sometimes cost more to operate than a quiet one. More members mean more electricity, more cleaning, more maintenance, more wear and tear, and eventually more equipment replacements. Growth certainly increases revenue, but it also increases expenses. That's why successful gym owners don't just ask, how many members can we sign up? They ask, how many profitable members can this facility actually support? Location plays an even bigger role than many people realize. Consider two identical gyms with the same equipment, the same staff, and the same membership prices. One is located in the center of a rapidly growing city surrounded by apartments, office buildings, universities, and restaurants. The other sits on the outskirts of town where fewer people pass by each day. Even if both gyms are managed equally well, the first location has a much larger pool of potential customers. That advantage compounds over time. More visibility leads to more walk-in traffic, more referrals, and lower customer acquisition costs. Sometimes the difference between a successful gym and a struggling one isn't better equipment. It's simply being on the right street. And then there are the seasons. January is often called the Super Bowl of the fitness industry. Millions of people begin the year with ambitious fitness goals. Membership sales soar. Gyms become packed. Parking lots overflow. Owners celebrate what feels like the start of an incredible year. But by March, attendance begins to decline. By summer, vacations interrupt routines. By the holiday season, many members are visiting less frequently than they did at the beginning of the year. This predictable cycle affects almost every gym in the world. Experienced owners understand it well enough to plan around it. They save cash during the busy months because they know quieter periods are inevitable. They don't mistake a temporary surge in memberships for permanent growth. At this point, owning a gym no longer looks like the simple business you imagined at the beginning. You're managing subscriptions, customer retention, marketing campaigns, staffing, equipment maintenance, facility operations, seasonal demand, and cash flow, all while trying to help people achieve their fitness goals. And yet, despite all of these challenges, some gyms continue expanding year after year while others quietly close their doors forever. So what separates the businesses that thrive from the ones that disappear? The answer has surprisingly little to do with treadmills or dumbbells, and almost everything to do with understanding one of the oldest economic principles in business. People don't pay for equipment, they pay for value. And that's where the economics of owning a gym become even more interesting. The biggest mistake first-time gym owners make is believing they're competing with other gyms. In reality, they're competing with something much harder to beat: human habits. Every January, millions of people promise themselves that this will finally be the year they get in shape. They sign up for gym memberships with incredible enthusiasm. They buy new workout clothes, new shoes, and sometimes even expensive fitness watches. For a few weeks, the gym is packed with motivation. Then February arrives, work becomes busy, kids go back to school, the weather changes, motivation fades. By spring, many of those enthusiastic new members have quietly disappeared. That's why the fitness industry isn't really selling exercise, it's selling consistency, and consistency is one of the hardest products in the world to deliver. The gyms that survive understand this better than anyone. They don't simply fill a building with equipment and hope people keep showing up. They create an environment that gives members reasons to return. Friendly staff remember names. Trainers celebrate milestones. Fitness challenges create accountability. Members make friends. Before long, the gym isn't just a place to lift weights. It becomes part of someone's daily routine. Economically, that's incredibly valuable because replacing an existing customer is almost always more expensive than keeping one. Every member who renews their subscription without needing another advertisement saves the business money. This is why large gym chains invest millions of dollars into customer experience. The equipment may attract someone for the first visit, but it's the overall experience that convinces them to stay for years. Clean facilities, functioning machines, short waiting times, knowledgeable staff, and a welcoming atmosphere all contribute to one simple goal: reducing cancellations. A gym owner who lowers monthly cancellations from 6% to 4% might not notice much difference in a single month. But over several years, that small improvement can translate into hundreds of additional long-term members and millions of dollars in extra revenue. Another lesson many people don't realize is that not every member is equally profitable. Imagine one customer who pays $50 each month, never damages equipment, rarely requires assistance, and happily renews every year. Now imagine another member paying the exact same amount but constantly requesting refunds, monopolizing equipment during peak hours, creating complaints, and canceling after 3 months. They both paid the same membership fee, but they created completely different values for the business. Successful owners don't just measure how many members they have. They measure the quality and lifetime value of those relationships. Technology has also transformed the economics of owning a gym. Years ago, gym owners relied heavily on paper contracts and front desk staff to manage memberships. Today, mobile apps allow members to check in, book classes, track workouts, freeze memberships, and even purchase personal training sessions directly from their phones. Automated billing reduces administrative work, while data analytics helps owners understand exactly when members visit, which equipment is most popular, and when additional machines or staff are needed. Information has become just as valuable as the equipment itself. Then came one of the biggest shocks the fitness industry had ever experienced. During the COVID-19 pandemic, gyms across the world were forced to close their doors for months. Memberships were frozen, revenue disappeared almost overnight, yet rent, insurance, equipment financing, and many other expenses continued. Thousands of independent gyms never reopened. The businesses that survived often had one thing in common: they adapted. They offered online coaching, virtual fitness classes, outdoor boot camps, equipment rentals, and digital memberships. It was a reminder that no matter how successful a business appears, unexpected events can completely change the economics overnight. At the same time, another competitor quietly emerged inside people's homes. Home fitness equipment exploded in popularity. Companies began selling connected exercise bikes, smart mirrors, adjustable dumbbells, and interactive workout platforms. For some people, driving to the gym no longer seemed necessary. Suddenly, gym owners weren't just competing with the facility down the street. They were competing with someone's spare bedroom or garage. That forced the industry to answer an important question: what can a gym offer that people can't easily recreate at home? The answer turned out to be community. You can buy a treadmill, you can buy weights, you can even stream thousands of workout videos online. But it's much harder to recreate the energy of exercising alongside dozens of other people, receiving immediate coaching from experienced trainers, and feeling accountable to a community that expects to see you. The most successful gyms stopped selling access to machines and started selling an experience that couldn't simply be delivered through an app. And that's perhaps the biggest economic lesson of all. At first glance, it looks like gym owners are investing in buildings, treadmills, barbells, and benches. But those things are simply tools. The real product isn't steel or rubber, it's transformation. People don't pay a monthly membership because they enjoy looking at exercise equipment. They pay because they believe the gym can help them become healthier, stronger, more confident, or live longer. They're investing in a better version of themselves. The same principle exists in almost every successful business. People rarely buy products because of what they are. They buy them because of what those products allow them to become. A smartphone isn't just electronics, it's communication. A car isn't just transportation, it's freedom. And a gym isn't just a building full of machines, it's a place where people believe change is possible. So, is owning a gym a good business? The answer is yes, but probably not for the reasons most people think. It's not because memberships are recurring, it's not because fitness is growing, and it's certainly not because treadmills generate passive income. It's a good business only when the owner understands the economics behind it. Control your costs, choose the right location, retain members longer than your competitors. Maximize the value of every square foot. Build a community instead of simply filling a room with equipment. Do those things well, and a gym can become an incredibly profitable business that serves thousands of people for decades. But if you focus only on buying expensive machines while ignoring the economics of customer behavior, cash flow, and retention, you'll quickly discover that owning a gym is one of the toughest businesses to succeed in. Because in the end, the strongest muscle a successful gym owner ever builds isn't found on the gym floor. It's the business behind it.